So many desires, or as many desires, so many blankets. Covering the radiance of the Spirit. We have to uncover to discover. We have to uncover, discover. We have to uncover, discover.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Divine Discoveries podcast. We have an interesting topic that we're going to talk about today as we lead into the holidays or the holiday season here in the United States, where we have, Thanksgiving in the month of November, which we're in right now, followed by, Christmas holidays and stuff in December. So that's considered like a very festive time here in the US of A. And we wanted to talk a little bit about, the Thanksgiving holiday and really being in the mode of gratitude and thankfulness and all that. So, but I'd like to actually take this time to welcome my castmate who's been missing for the last 2 or 3 episodes or so, but I'm very excited to have him back in the fold. And I hope he's excited to come back. But he's been a busy guy because he, like I mentioned in one of the previous episodes, that he became a father once again for another beautiful baby girl, and her name is Shreya. So I believe she's 2 or 3 months old. Vikram, welcome back, by the way.
Yeah, thank you so much for that very kind welcome, and I am very excited to be back and to resume our conversation, and also to share some exciting items with all of our listeners. But yes, Shreya is 2.5 months now, almost 3 months. On December 1st, she'll be 3 months. So pretty crazy how quickly time is flying. But yes, very excited to be back.
Thank you. Yes, we've definitely missed your contributions, and it's nice to have you back once again. So without any further ado, we'll go ahead and do the prayers, and then we'll continue with our topic. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Om Gurur Brahma Gurur Vishnu Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha. Gurur Sakshat Parabrahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Om Gum Gurubhyo Namaha. Om Vakratunda Mahakaya Koti Surya Samaprabha. Nirvignam Kurume Deva Sarvakaryeshu Sarvada. Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha. Om Sarvamangala Mangalye Shive Sarvartha Sadike Sharanye Trayambake Gauri Narayani Namostute. Om Dum Durgaye Namaha. Om Aim Saraswatye Swaha. Om Shrim Mahalakshmi Namaha. Om Shri Mahakalikaye Namaha. Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam. Urvarukamiva Bandhanan Mrityor Mokshi Yamamrutat. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Bhur Bhuvaswaha. Om Tatsaviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yonaha Prachodayat. Om Shantakaram Bhujagashayanam Padmanabham Suresham Vishwadharam Gaganasadrusham Meghavarnam Shubhangam Lakshmi Kantam Kamalanayanam Yogi Birdhyanagamyam Vande Vishnum Bhavabhayaharam Sarvalokaikkanatham. Om Namo Narayanaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Pandurangaya. Om Apadamapahartaram Dataram Sarvasampadam Lokabhiramam Shriramam Bhuyo Bhuyo Namamyaham. Shrirama Jai Rama Jai Jai Rama. Om Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsachanurmardhanam. Devaki Paramanandam Shri Krishnam Vande Jagatkurum. Om Klim Krishnaya Namaha. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Thank you to all our listeners who are joining us once again. This is episode number 16. I can't believe that we're almost here at the end of the year. We started back in January, and here we are, almost closing the year out. But Vikram, please let our listeners know how they can connect with us in case they don't know already.
Absolutely. So we are available on many different platforms. So we you can find and listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, YouTube, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. We also have a WhatsApp channel called Divine Discoveries Podcast. You can connect with us and share your feedback on Facebook with the page name Divine Discoveries. Our Instagram is divine underscore discoveries underscore 108. And we have an email as well, divine discoveries 108 at gmail.com. So there's lots of ways to connect with us, lots of ways to listen. Please share with all of your friends and family. We'd love to hear your feedback as well. And one very exciting note that we wanted to share with all of you is that we are now being heard, or we've now been heard in 33 countries. And so we also urge you to rate us so that our listenership continues to grow. And we also thank everybody who gives us feedback and shares their thoughts with us regularly and has already shared our podcast with others. So very exciting to share that with all of you.
Thank you so much, Vikram, and thanks to once again to our listeners. You know, like I introduced, sort of like touched on the topic that we're going to talk about today, Vikram, is Thanksgiving, is coming up. And, it really commemorates the coming together of families and celebrating together, eating good food, and, really thanking, I would say, the Almighty, taking the day, that one day is dedicated to remind everybody that, you need to be grateful for what you have and thank the divine spirit or God or whatever you want to call that force for providing you with the means to survive and live a good life. And, it's a great tradition. All our Hindu festivals are over for the year for the most part. I mean, yeah, of course, if you go and look at the Hindu calendar, we will speak about the holy days of the month of November, and there are some. But then, as of after Diwali ends, you really don't think about anything until the following year. But, being born in the U.S. for both of us, we grew up learning about the Thanksgiving holiday and its history and all that stuff, and it's something that really ties into, I think, most religions. But we can definitely find a lot of ties just with that concept or that term gratitude or thankfulness. There's a lot of examples of that from our Puranas. There's a lot of, teachings from the Vedas and the Upanishads and Bhagavad Gita that tie into that, and we're going to get into that. But, like you're back now after 2 or 3 months, and I know that you have a lot to be thankful for. You have a new bundle of joy in your home, and congratulations once again on that, on behalf of our listeners as well. So, if I had to ask you right now, like, what would you say, Vikram, other than, of course, the arrival of Shreya? Like, you can certainly mention that, but I'd like to know from you, what would you say that you're thankful for?
Yeah, it's an interesting question because there are certain things that I would say are a constant in terms of what I'm thankful for. Things that if you were to ask me every Thanksgiving, I would still be thankful for those things. So, from that perspective, I would say, I'm very thankful for my family and my friends who are a cornerstone of support, of encouragement, in good times and bad times. Not everyone has such a close-knit or strong support system. And I've always found it to be a really important aspect of life and one's growth and one's ability to keep moving, to have that foundation. So that's a constant. So, with my parents and my sister and my wife and my two little girls and all all my family. I mean, it's even even, my in-laws and my brother-in-laws, and, they're another set of parents, another set of siblings, and it's a really strong support system. So that's a
Right.
constant thing that I'm thankful of. But I think there's also certain things that are unique to that particular year. And, I think that for me, when I look at 2025, I think I'm very thankful in terms of what I've learned this year. And, and this is not just learning, like, say, things you learn on a job or anything like that. Of course,
Sure.
that type of skills is also very, very important, but it's also just kind of you're learning as a human being, you're learning about life, you're learning about people and how that contributes to your own growth and your own ability to understand what life is about. I felt like, this year in particular, I learned a lot, and I'm very thankful that that was there to help me grow as a human.
Sure.
And, one thing that also I haven't thought of as much as before, to be honest, which is just kind of strange, but through doing the podcast is, with this podcast, we've had the opportunity to talk so much about the divine, and I think that's made me realize that I'm also thankful for the fact that we have knowledge of the divine, that we have knowledge of this greater power that is there for us, and that is so beautiful, that is all good and all knowing. And so we're also blessed that we have knowledge of such a power, or such an entity. So I would say that that's what I'm thankful for this year.
Wonderful. Yeah, what you said is like what you referred to as constants. I think that's what you would quite often hear from most people, is what they're thankful for, the support system, like you said, in the family, and, just being fortunate enough to have a good living, a good job, good income, having a good home. And, we have a lot in terms of like what we've been blessed with in terms of that, so we often have these, moments, I would say, when we're thankful, when we actually take a step back and we realize that this is what we're thankful for, and there are moments when we actually feel that. And there may be times when we actually express it to somebody in the family or to our spouse or whatever. I mean, hey, I'm feeling really grateful today, or for whatever the reason may be. But I would say there's like two aspects to this gratitude that we're talking about. There's the material aspect of it, and then there's also a spiritual aspect of it, right? Just like a lot of the things that we've spoken about. So I think when it comes to material, for example, our home, our car, so I think just like we have those things for a certain period of time, everything's momentary, everything's temporary. I feel like even our thankfulness, or being in that mode of gratitude, is something that we feel, like I said, time to time, but we don't bask in it all the time. We're not really getting marinated in that all the time. It's like we feel that, and then it's like a passing thought. It comes and it goes. And that's really not, that's what majority would experience. But our scriptures, the great saints, have told us that we need to stay in that mode. We need to reach a point where we're always grateful. And because when you think about materially, right, we're always running after something more and more and more, right? We want that happiness, that satisfaction within, and we feel like it's something that we need to acquire, something that we don't have. So there's always this feeling of a lack of something that we don't have, right? That we need to get in order to feel fulfilled. But we realize that once we get that, okay, now what? Now what? We're moving on to the next thing. Like we've kind of thought about this before. But the thankfulness is also like, okay, today I'm thankful for what I have, but then the next minute some adversity hits, and then I'm like, okay, my mind is completely rattled, and then that thankfulness, or that feeling that, that this is all part of a plan. Even when adversity hits, I'm going to learn something from this. I'm going to be thanking the Lord at some point for this, right? We don't get that in our mind. The presence of mind, what we say, it doesn't come to us at that moment. We get rattled. So the point is that obviously this is all an evolutionary process. We're all trying to get to that point where we are thankful for everything, every little thing, even just waking up in the morning, instead of like waking up with like, oh my God, I know what lies ahead of me, I'm dreading the day, or going to sleep having that stress in your mind. It's nice to have a little bit of a calming attitude and just say, whatever it is, I'll deal with it later, but I'm just going to get a good night's rest because I know the Lord has something, He'll take care of me, or I'll be taken care of, as long as I have that faith. And I think that's the key, because I feel like today, if everything's going your way, you're thankful, at least for a few moments, not even for the whole day. And then, the next day, if things don't go your way, you lose your mind, and that thankfulness, that sense of gratitude is gone. And I feel there's a lot of things that tie into that feeling of gratitude that help us evolve spiritually, because we talk about humility, right? We talk about compassion and all these other, qualities that we call sattvic qualities, right? Pious qualities. These are all things that we have to develop. So I think that thankfulness and gratitude is one of the essential, absolute must, like essential key ingredients here that ties in with spiritual evolution. Because we have to realize that when it comes to material, being thankful from a material standpoint, right? There's two dangers. One, if it's gone tomorrow, what are you going to do? Are you still going to be thankful for what you still have? Right? So that's question number one. And the other problem is ego, right? Like you do something for somebody, and then let's just say somebody does something for you, you thank them, right? We're showing them our gratitude. Hey, thank you so much for that. We appreciate that. But when we do something for somebody else, we also expect a thank you or something. Our ego and our mind play these games with us, and we tend to get carried away by that. And if somebody doesn't give us the same level of gratitude back, then we are disappointed by that, right? Then we start building negative thoughts about that person and put them in a frame where we're like, okay, this is the way this person is, and that's not going down the right path at all. So what I'm trying to get at is that, there's that material way of thinking, or being thankful, which is, like I said, very momentary. Maybe it is a genuine feeling, but it's very momentary. But then the expectation is there, the ego is there that, hey, I need to get something like that back. But then when you look at it from a spiritual standpoint, then you're not bonded. There's no bondage towards anything. If you're just going to do it because as a service to that individual or service to the Lord, like Krishna says, do everything in the mode of service to me in the Bhagavad Gita, right? Set aside all the rituals, all the dharmas of the world, put your faith in me and do your duty as a worship to me. So, and we also come to that line where he says, do your karma, but the fruits of that karma is not in your hands. So that's a much more liberating way of being grateful, where you're doing something for the benefit of somebody else, but you're just doing it and walking past it. And if they happen to thank you, great. If they don't say anything, you're not at all disturbed by that, you know? And you just go about, you enjoy everything around you because you're grateful for each and every element of nature that has been provided to you. And that's not something we value on a daily basis. So that's why I wanted to make that distinction of material gratitude and spiritual gratitude. And so thoughts on that, Vikram?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you said exactly what I was going to bring up, which is that, you know, when you think about like the Gita, for instance, where one of the main points is that materialism breeds desire, desire breeds attachment, thus complicating the path for you to attain salvation, right?
Right.
But if you imbibe gratitude with everything that you have, material and immaterial, so to speak, then you don't really have any further desire per se. You're happy with what you have. And that is the step towards salvation. So that is
Right.
that's an absolutely correct point that you mentioned. The other interesting point that you mentioned was about how, you might go through certain hardships at a point in time, and in that moment, we're all human, right? I mean, you're wondering, why is this happening to me?
Right.
What do I do? But you know as they say that, with every failure or every challenge, there's a learning, right? you
Right.
learn you learn from failure, you learn from challenge. You try your best when you're in those situations to fight those. I mean, when you fail, you think, okay, this didn't work. What can I do to make it better? And when you're stuck in the middle of a challenge, you're like, how do I get out of this? And your brain goes to work, and you're pushing and you're pulling until you get out of that thing. So all these things make you stronger. And to continue to be a strong human being who can face adversity in life, which is adversity is another constant. There's nobody on this earth that is completely has a life that's smooth sailing. There's some challenge or the other.
Absolutely.
So yes, so yeah, you're right. You don't immediately know, but what you get out of that is something that ultimately serves you better, though it may not be noticeable at the time. And that system that God and the universe has set up, where you continue to kind of carve your path and you continue to be resilient and you continue to get stronger, is also something that we should be grateful for. It's not easy, but
No, yeah.
it helps us in the long run, because things as things get tougher, you've gone through things that are tough. So you become tougher and you can handle things a lot better.
Absolutely. And the thing is that what we have to realize is that, just like I've said, we have something today, we may not have it tomorrow. How do we continue to move on and continue to live life and still be grateful, whether it's a relative that you lose or whether it's, inanimate object, whatever it could be, we tend to attach ourselves with a lot of different things. But what we need to be able to do is, it's interesting. Sanatana Dharma tells us, it doesn't tell us to renounce, because not everybody, renunciation is not possible for everybody. I remember Guruji saying this in so many different discourses that, renunciation and what you call brahmacharya, like becoming a brahmachari or celibate and renunciate and going out on that path of what you call path of knowledge and meditation, contemplation and all that stuff, and just living by yourself without too many other resources and stuff around you, is not everybody's cup of tea. And it's very, very rare that people are able to do that. That's also a karmic thing. They've worked their way up to that point where they have the strength to do that. But a lot of people do attempt that, and then they have to revert back to family life. So he says people can have the relationships, people can have all the luxuries of life, as long as they find a way to use them for the right purposes, for the good of humanity, for the good of their family, take care of your responsibilities. Nobody said no, but you have to detach. It's just like the example in the Bhagavad Gita where we see the drop of water on the lotus leaf, and it can just roll off. And there's no attachment, there's no residue of that anymore. So that's the way we need to have that detached attachment. So it's not that we detach in the sense that you're separating yourself physically and saying, I'm no longer going to be with these people anymore, because that's not something most people can handle. Like I said, you can live amongst people, you can maintain your relationships, but you have to find a way to keep that inner peace and not get agitated, disturbed easily. And that's the challenge of life, right? That's the challenge of life. It's not easy to do that because we have these attachments right now. And, the people in our lives give us joy and they give us misery. I don't know if I should use that word, but they can also make us unhappy at moments, right? We know that. So, but the idea is that we take both, like, the Gita really becomes a great resource in this conversation, because so many teachings that we're talking about come from the Gita, where he says the sthita pragya, the perfect man. What is the example of that perfect man is what Arjuna asks, right? So Krishna talks about one who takes pleasure and pain and, the sorrows and the joys of the world and everything, the dualities of the world, and sort of keeps them all in balance, even to the point where the amount of sleep is not too much or too less. The amount that person eats is not overly like feasting on something, or not eating at all, like completely fasting. So finding that balance in life in all aspects is so crucial. And the thing about material life is that, like we said, like either those things are going to leave you or you're going to leave it one day. That's the reality of it, right? Every relationship, everything that you own, that you so-called own, that will cease to be at some point, because your soul in this body is only going to last for so long. So when you think about it that way, it's really hard-hitting, and it drives home the point that when you have this lifespan, try your best, even though at this point we've lived so many years already, Vikram, that whatever amount of span we have left, we need to be inspired, I think, to reach somewhat to that level as far as we can go by following whatever these saints have told us, because they have it all together inside. They're not disturbed by anything. Sometimes they may act a certain way just to teach somebody a lesson, but it doesn't mean that even if they show that they're angry, they're really not disturbed. They're not all torn up inside, So I think this is one of the things that, for them, obviously, they have struck enlightenment. And once you've struck enlightenment, you're already free. You're liberated. Even though you're still living in this world, the duality doesn't affect you. But for us, family people, normal people who are inclined towards spiritual seeking, I think we know that this is possible for us. That's what they've told us, that this is possible for you. That's what their whole life has been centered around, is inspiring us to believe that we can be just like them at some point, whether it's in this lifetime or we work our way towards that kind of a life.
Absolutely. No, 100% agree. I couldn't have said it better myself.
So taking this further, I've already spoken about the Gita, but there are some verses that I'd like to read, and there's so many of them, obviously, either directly or indirectly, are tied into this feeling of gratitude and emphasizing how important it is. So here's chapter 2, verse 14, where Krishna is speaking to Arjuna. He says, "O Kaunteya, The fleeting nature of happiness and distress, which come and go like the changing winter and summer seasons, are rooted in sense perception. One must learn to tolerate them without being disturbed. So let's see, number 20 of the same chapter. Again, this is the one verse that you can say is one of the key ones where where Krishna really tells us what our true nature is and why we shouldn't really be disturbed too much and take life too seriously, because here we go. The soul is never born, nor does it ever die, nor does it come into being with the creation of the body, and neither does it ever cease to exist. It is birthless, eternal, immortal, and timeless. The soul cannot be destroyed, even if the body is slain. So that tells us about what's temporary and what is permanent about our life. And chapter 3, verse 13, the spiritually inclined person who consumes the remnants of food first offered in sacrifice is freed from all sins. On the contrary, those who prepare food only for their own consumption eat sin itself. So what do most people do when they're hungry? It's interesting. Like most of us, we probably do this 90% of the time, which is, oh, I'm hungry, let's whip up something, or, wife cooks something, and then we're sitting and we're eating it. And very, very rarely do we take the time to stop and think, oh God, thank you for this. Even for a moment, if we think that, I think it would do us better. And this verse tells us that, at least have that thought of gratitude, at least in that moment, even for a split second, if you think that, that's good enough. And then there's chapter 7, verse 14. This divine illusory energy of mind, what we call Maya, comprising the three modes of nature, or the characteristics, the three dominant characteristics of this world, is the sattva, rajas, and tamas. Most of you who have read the Bhagavad Gita would know those three. So he says, comprising of the three modes, it is very difficult to transcend them, but those who surrender to me can easily cross over it. So Krishna is saying, once again, realize that you're not always in control of everything. And that's the other part of it, is that our ego makes us think that we are driving everything, the successes are ours, and the failures are due to some God or somebody else who we can blame.
Right. No, I mean, these are, it's funny, each of these quotes are actually in line with what we were talking about before. So I think, we have understood somewhere how we should approach gratitude towards life. But it isn't always easy to put into practice.
Right.
But I think at least we understand what should be done.
Yeah, I mean, I think it starts with a conscious thought. Like, once you know that this is something that you should do, I understand it's not something you may do 100% of the time, but slowly you start doing it more, That's the key. If you've done it once or twice more than you would have done it before, it's still progress, So any progress is good progress, And then a couple more, chapter 9, verse 26. Whoever offers me a leaf, a flower, a fruit, or water, with genuine devotion and with pure consciousness, I accept that heartfelt offering. So that one is really a beautiful one, and it's one that stands out to me because God himself is saying that, just you remember me and you offer me even the simplest thing. It's not like any of these things don't already belong to him. As the Aarti song, Om Jai Jagadisha Hare says, right? Tera tujhko arpan, kya lage mera. We say that, right? So it's already yours, Lord, but we are humbly offering it to you as a token of our bhakti, as a token of our devotion. So he says a leaf, a flower. He's just naming the simplest of things, which none of it is alluding to, give me gold or, any very expensive stuff, So it shows how you're just how simple God's expectations are from us. And if we can also simplify our lives accordingly, that would be good. That would take us towards peaceful life. And then he says in the very next verse, 27 of chapter 9, O Konteya, whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you offer in sacrifice or give in charity, whatever austerities you practice, do all of that as an offering to me. So it's really like, many a time, like I said, when good things happen, we like to take the credit for it. But we don't realize that there's a lot of aspects. Of course, you can say that you have your consciousness and you have your ability to think and all that. But at the same time, all of that is really God-given, right? And it's interesting. There's a verse, I think, in chapter 15 where Krishna says, I'm inside your belly, and whatever you're consuming, I'm actually the fire. I'm making all that digestion happen inside you. So he goes to that minute level of detail and says that every function of your body is sort of regulated by me. So we have to first give credit to the creator of everything, and then also not forget to give credit to the teammates, to the team members who have contributed in some fashion or another, even if it's in the smallest way. They may not have actually done anything for that project that you presented and you got accolades for, but just that pat on the back or just that like pep talk or whatever it might have been that you needed along the way. It could have been your wife who did that for you, or your mom who did that for you, or a friend who did that for you. And that kind of helped you get there, but you forget about that. I think this is something that reminds us to think about all that have helped you along the way and deflect the credit and give it to everybody else. Don't take it for yourself. Because once you take it for yourself, then it's ego boosting. So it's not. And when I say that, I don't mean to say people shouldn't have self-esteem. There's a difference between egoism, egotistic nature, and self-esteem. You're fully capable because the Almighty has enabled you with all the faculties necessary to do the job. So you're very much capable of doing work and doing good things and accomplishing things. But the more and more that you think that I'm the doer, I'm the one who's making this happen, and really nothing else is contributing to it, then that's where you're going to fail. That's where you're taking the wrong approach of thinking. And the very last one is just 2 verses later, chapter 9, verse 29, is, I am impartial towards all living beings. I do not hate anyone, nor is anyone dear to me. However, those who worship me with sincere devotion, they reside in me, and I also reside in them. So those are the few verses that I can read, but of course the Gita is so much more there. But I'm sure somewhere many of these verses really drive home this feeling of gratitude that people should have and develop.
Absolutely. I think you picked very apt quotes for discussing gratitude. I think as we were discussing earlier, I think gratitude and kind of cutting off from materialism, but at the same time recognizing that certain material things are part of this life, but not really developing an attachment to them. I think that all comes in the form of gratitude. And I think that that's one of the essences of Gita, is to appreciate what you have, appreciate whatever life gives you, good and bad.
Right.
Again, that's also linked to karma. But again, with karma, it's you can only do, but the fruit of what you do is left up to God, left up to the universe, left up to your fate. So you just accept it, do your best, and and move on. And truthfully, I mean, again, we keep saying it's not easy to do this, but truthfully, if you think about it, if that's the attitude that you have, you really can be a happy person.
Right.
Like honestly,
Truly happy.
truly happy, because then
Yeah.
nothing really phases you.
Correct.
You know, if great things are happening to you all the time, but you just take it as a blessing, then ego is not going to creep in,
Right.
because ego, as we know, destroys progress. Right.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
and then if you have bad things happen, but you're just kind of being like, okay, it is what it is, but I'll still try to, again, it won't mess with your mind.
Yes.
You will face it. So,
Right.
yeah.
Because your mind at that point is tamed. It's tuned already to where it should be. And I guess at that point, like Guruji would always say, all the saints or all the people who have been given that benevolence, if you will, that gift of enlightenment, they are the mere instruments of the divine. The divine is working through them, and they've accepted that. So no matter what happens to them or what happens around them, there's no individuality anymore. There's no, that ego is not, they don't do anything for themselves. They don't think of themselves as anything separate from anybody else. There's that feeling of unity and oneness that they have fully absorbed into that mode, So it's incredible. I mean, and the good thing is that Guruji also said that no soul shall be damned in hell forever. We came from the reservoir of bliss, and we must return there. How long it takes one individual soul to get there that's their choosing, based on how quickly they take to these practices, and how quickly, how much that they dedicate their lives to spiritual and evolution. But at some point or another, every soul must return, So that's very encouraging and inspiring. So on that note, I'd like to actually ask you, Vikram, because you're a great storyteller and you can always pick out some nice episodes from some Purana or the other, or some epic or the other. So I wanted to know if you have any stories that you'd like to tell, or something where like gratitude is really put on display.
Absolutely. So, there's a lot of stories that I've shared in previous episodes, which are my favorite, which I won't repeat here, that display gratitude, but such as, the story of Lord Krishna and the fruit seller, or the story of Krishna and Sudam, or the story of Lord Rama and Shabri. But I think two of the things that kind of stick out to me, with different kind of tones, I would say. So one is actually in Uttar Ramayana, which is, it's an incident that takes place after Sri Ram is coronated as king. Basically, at that point, Sri Ram and Mata Sita are thanking all who helped them in the defeat of Ravan, right? And in getting through the 14 years of exile. And during that whole kind of delivery of gifts and all of that, Sri Ram says, you know, Mata Sita has a har, like a special necklace that she wants to give to Hanumanji. Now, when Hanumanji hears this, he gets very disturbed. He said he thinks that, he's like, Prabhu, I'm your bhakt. You, by giving me this type of gift, this material gift of pearls and whatnot, in some ways you're thinking of me as equivalent to all of the other people that helped you out, but I'm more than that. So anyway, this is what's in his mind. He goes and he takes the necklace he talks to Mata Sita and he says that, look, Mata Sita, when I met you in Ashok Vatika, when you were captive at Ravan's palace, you know, you you asked me what is something that I would want from you. And quite honestly, I don't need these pearls and I don't need this. What I really want is that your portrait, I guess would be the English translation, but it's hard. I would want you always in my heart,
Yeah,
permanently
like
etched.
etched
Yeah,
in there. Yeah,
etched in there,
yeah,
right? That's what I want. And Mata Sita said, she said, you know what? There's nobody else in this universe that is worthy of this than you. And she says, Tathastu. And then Hanumanji rips open his chest, and there, permanently etched, is that. This the incident that I described about Hanumanji, and it's very beautifully shown in Ramadan Saga's Lavkush or Uttar
yes,
Ramayana as it's called. And I can, Ravindra Jain, who did the music and lyrics, I mean, divine,
yeah,
divine. And that there's the phrase that I still remember it, the phrase that he sings during that particular scene, which really describes the emotion of that is he says from Hanumanji's perspective, he says,
yeah.
"Ye Mata meri bhakti ko ratno se na tol,
Hmm.
Ram siya की युगल छवि है सबसे अनमोल."
Anmol.
Yeah,
Do you want to
yeah,
translate that?
yeah, yeah. So he's saying that, my devotion, don't put it on the same, I guess,
Scale,
balance, same scale as,
weighing, so to speak. Yeah,
yeah, as pearls and jewels.
yeah,
Your, your like seeing you or experiencing you, that is the most unique thing, not the jewelry.
yeah, yeah. The
So
most
it's
precious. Yeah.
yeah, most precious. So it's really just so, I mean, I don't. I mean, I haven't read the text, so I don't know if it's quite as emotional as how they've shown it. But
Hmm.
quite frankly, if it isn't, I prefer the emotional version that they've shown on, because it really touches you, and
Yeah.
and it you hope that that was kind of what it was like. So yeah.
It probably was. If not, it was probably even more so.
Even
Maybe,
more so,
you
yeah.
know.
And then the other thing that comes to mind, it's gratitude, but it's it's a little more complex. I wouldn't say it's beautiful in any respect, but it just shows how gratitude can go to the extreme even without thinking about what the consequences could be. So in Mahabharat, we have the character of Karn. Now, Karn, I'm sure a lot of our listeners know, Karn was born a Kshatriya. He was born to Kunti, but he was born before she was married. She had gotten a mantra where she can summon any devta, and then she would be given a son. So she tests out this thing. She realizes it's true. She has this son from the sun god, from Surya Dev, and she's like, I can't keep this. I'm not married. So she puts the baby in a basket and lets him run down a river, and he's picked up by a charioteer, and he's raised by the charioteer, and he grows up in I guess what's considered kind of a lower caste type of thing at the time. But then, but he always has that Kshatriyaness in his blood.
Right.
So when the Pandavas grow up, when the Kauravas grow up, there's a whole big ceremony where they can show off their skills. Arjun, as we know, was an expert archer. So he's there, and Karn comes and he challenges Arjun, says, he's like, you're not the best. I'm better, if not as good as you. And they ask the gurus ask Karn, they're like, well, Arjun is a prince. Who are you? So Karn is, his identity comes forward as being the charioteer's son, and he's put down. But at that moment, Duryodhan, comes and he says, look, the identity of a warrior is just that he's a warrior. It doesn't matter what his caste is or anything. So he's like, but if you must have him be a warrior, then I'm going to crown him the king of Angdesh, which is under my purview.
Right.
And so he gives this kingdom to Karn. Now, after that moment, Karn feels that he's indebted to Duryodhan for life because Duryodhan has given him this respect. He's given him wealth. He's given him, a friendship, all this kind of stuff. And
Right.
so Karn, from that point onwards, no matter what wrong stuff Duryodhan does, Karn supports him. And Karn knows that some of the stuff that Duryodhan is doing, well, not some, a lot of the stuff he's doing is wrong.
Right.
But he is so grateful for all that Duryodhan has done for him that he sticks with it. And he sticks with it even after figuring out that the Pandavas are his brothers, even after knowing that he's fighting a losing battle. He sticks to it. And he's, although he strayed from the path of dharma, he's still considered as a respectable figure because he always at least he recognized that what he did was wrong, and he regretted it. He expressed this
Yes.
to Krishna and all of that. But that's another aspect of gratitude at the max, where you give up your life because you are so thankful for what someone has done for you. You'd follow them no matter what path they're on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That also goes to show like how friendship is one of those unique bonds, right? We obviously have our blood relations and all that stuff, but sometimes a friend can do so much for you, and you can do so much for your friend. Like that friendship bond, it can be very, very unique and special. And that's exemplified in that story. Absolutely. And great examples.
But one story that comes to my mind is it's actually the story of a character named Angulimala. Do you know that story?
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't quite remember all the aspects of it, but I do
Yeah.
remember it was one of the Amar Chitrakatha books that I used to
Yeah.
have. Yeah.
Yes. So that story left an impact on me, and I feel just kind of as I feel like that would be a very interesting and emotional story, that should be told in some visual medium. But basically, the short version of that story is that, if I remember it all correctly, is that a king who's expecting a child, there's some bad omens that take place. I think the weapons in the armory are jingling, and that means that the child that's going to come is going to cause destruction. So I think the child is abandoned somewhere, and then it's raised by some people, and he's fine. He's a normal child, but he grows up to be a young teenager, and he's bullied and whatnot. And I think at one point the frustrations really get to him, and there's these dakus, or these robbers, that attack him in the jungle, and he just gets really mad and he kills all of the robbers. And that kind of snaps his mind. So he's like, you know what? So many people have given me so much pain. I'm gonna be a robber, and I'm gonna cut off whoever rob. I'm gonna kill them, and I'm gonna cut off their fingers and make a necklace out of it. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Pretty violent stuff. So that happens, and he becomes a feared robber. The one day, he's there, and a stunning, beautiful, radiant person is walking, and Angulimala goes. His name becomes Angulimala because he keeps the necklace of fingers. Yeah, and he stops this person and he says, I'm going to kill you, and that person very peacefully says, okay, my son, if that's what's going to make you happy, then go ahead and kill me. And he's just so taken aback by this person's radius and calmness, he falls to their feet. That person is none other than Sri Gautam Buddha,
Ah.
the Buddha.
Yes.
and he becomes his disciple,
Yeah.
and he renounces all of this violence. He becomes a reformed person and this and that. But the story ends in tragedy when, you know, he goes to a village, and he's going house to house collecting, alms, and he's interacting with some kids very lovingly, and somebody recognizes him and says, "Wait, that's Angulimala. He's gonna hurt that kid." And basically they stone him, they beat him up, and he gets very badly beaten near death, and he crawls his way to the lap of Gautam Buddha, and he says,
Mhm.
"Buddham Sharanam Gacchami," right? And he basically thanks him for turning his life around, and he gives up his. I mean, again, it's a sad story, but it's I think in some ways it's also a very beautiful story of redemption, and again, it's thanking God. In this case, she got them, but
Yeah.
of getting him on the right path before things got even worse. So that story is one that I've always carried with me because it's very emotional. Yeah, I
That's
definitely
great.
think it could make for a great movie or something. I think.
Yeah. Yeah. It sounds great. And of course, it's tied into Lord Buddha himself.
Yes, yes,
And thank you for bringing that up, because Buddhism also has some great teachings that I'm sure gratitude is a very, very central aspect of it. And thank you so much for tying that in as well. So that's wonderful. Yeah, I mean, when you think about these epics, there are so many different episodes that you can think of, but sometimes it's so many that it's hard to pinpoint some. But I would say, like, when and his army went into Lanka and defeated Ravana and all of them, right? And of course, at every step of the way, Hanuman was a great helper and great devotee. And when he had gone in search of Mother Sita to Lanka, and he saw the one house that was unique compared to all the other houses, and that was where there was actually the symbols of Lord Vishnu, painted on the walls. And imagine that in a demon clan, there was Vibhishan, the brother of Ravana and Kumbhakarna, who just stood apart from them and had that noble mind and noble heart, and he was seeking the grace of Lord Vishnu. And he was practicing, I believe, Ekadashi fast and everything too. So he was such a big bhakt of Lord Vishnu that he gave thanks also to Hanuman for being the one who took him to the Lord. Basically, he was the Lord's greatest devotee that he was able to meet, and also help lead him towards where Mother Sita was held captive and all those things. And also, Lord Rama himself, after the war was over, after he was triumphant in victory, he was so humble and said, this victory belongs to all of you. If it wasn't for each and every one of you who contributed, in whatever manner it was, you all defeated somebody. And without that, I wouldn't have been able to get this victory ultimately, right? So God himself shows that humility when he didn't have to, but so that to me really stood out, you know.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely, and yeah, I mean, I think, of course, there's so many stories in the Purans and all, but I think
Right.
there's so many instances of gratitude in our main epics of
Yeah.
Ramayana and Mahabharata.
So, one aspect, one very key ingredient for gratitude, for us to come around to gratitude or being grateful, being thankful more and more and more in our life, also is something that we require, but it's not something that we have any control over. It's something that has to dawn upon us. The grace of
Grace,
God,
yes,
the grace of
grace
God.
of God. Okay,
Yeah.
yes,
So it's a very, very important ingredient, I would say, in order for us to take our spiritual journeys to the peak, is without the grace of God, we cannot do that. So there's one letter that Guruji had written to all his devotees on his 53rd birthday. I believe it was in 1987. And I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I'm going to read a little snippet of it, where he says, he's talking about grace and prayer and all that. So he says, a heartfelt prayer brings immediate response from God. God's angels rush toward the devotee and bring him total protection. There are hundreds of stories of living saints and past sages where God himself in some form rushes to protect his votaries. And in quotes it says, to those who are wholeheartedly devoted to me, I personally attend even to their physical needs and protect them, unquote, says Lord Sri Krishna in the Holy Bhagavad Gita. We can escape from danger by the power of prayer and the grace of God. The following beautiful story illustrates this point. A little pigeon was perching on the branch of a tree. A fowler or a hunter below had fixed his arrow, aiming it towards the pigeon. An owl, also having intentions of making a meal of the little bird, perched on the top branch of the same tree. The helpless pigeon, seeing the danger from both sides, closed its eyes and offered a moment's prayer to God for its protection. Now a miracle took place. All of a sudden, a snake appeared from nowhere and bit the fowler, or hunter, just as he was discharging the arrow at the pigeon. His arrow missed the bird and hit the owl instead. The owl fell dead, and the fowler fell unconscious. The little bird opened its eyes from prayer and realized it had been saved by prayer. With deep gratitude, it chirped, quote, "Praise be to the Lord," end quote. The meaning of this story is, we are like that little pigeon on the tree of life. We are confronted with danger from all sides. If we offer sincere prayers like the pigeon in the story, we will miraculously escape from dangers and will be protected on all sides by the merciful Lord. So I just wanted to share that.
Beautiful, beautiful. It's always a pleasure to hear his
Yeah.
wisdom.
And now you're going to actually get to hear it because
Awesome.
he had done, believe it or not, it was a discourse delivered in 1992, November 26th, Thanksgiving Day, to all the Western disciples who had gathered there in Oakland, California. And he spoke further on this topic of the grace of God. So let me play that for you guys.
A day that is thanksgiving to the Lord, who can tell what is the grace of God? All this is grace of God. In the midst of all this pollution, if we live, it is grace of God, is it not? With all this earthquake and various other problems, we are all still living. It is grace of God. Grace of God is always known to us when we get satsanga. When we get satsanga, association with saintly people, that comes to you only by the grace of God. If the grace is not there on this Turkey day, how would you come here? Rama Kripa Binu Sulabhana Soyi. Without the Rama Kripa, grace of Rama, grace of God, association with saintly people is not possible. So these two important utterances of the Tulsi Ramayana gives you the clue. Grace of God is to meet God's direct chosen instruments. Sadhu Satpurushas. Undoubtedly, you know then you have the grace of God. When the dumb all of a sudden become eloquent, deaf can hear, lame can cross over the Himalayas. Impossibilities in any human level, when it easily become possible. That is called grace of God. In other words, for grace of God, nothing is impossible. For grace of God, everything is possible. Or I could say in one word, no matter what sadhana you do, what effort you do, without grace of God, you will not see God. You will not have realization of God without grace of God. Yamadharma Raja, god of death, having conversation with the bold boy Nachiketa in the Katha Upanishad. There Yamadharma Raja teaches Nachiketa, Nayam Atma Pravachanena Labhya, means Atman or God is not available just by the sermon, even though it is helpful. Na medhaya, neither by sharpest intellect. Na bahuna shrutera, nor by listening a lot, even though all these are very important. On whosoever grace of God comes, to him alone God is revealed. Now it is most difficult now to say whom God will select. That is all I want you to do. Ask him. Ask him means meditate on him, pray. That is how you ask. Then you will know, when you begin asking him, then you will be chosen. Those who choose God are chosen by God. Unless you are chosen, you cannot choose God. Who chooses first? So there is a food for thought. That is what you have to meditate. Therefore, again it comes back to the same Guru who makes you to turn towards him so that he will look towards you. Grace will not happen in all cases boundless. A little grace comes upon you with some pain, with some agony, with some affliction, a problem which you cannot solve, and therefore you cannot sit at home, you cannot go to a restaurant, you cannot go anywhere where you can solve this problem, therefore you suddenly entered into the temple, perhaps. There, because of the words of wisdom, the chanting, the bhajan, you felt more faith, more devoted. As the faith increased, the grace also is increasing. So more the faith, more the grace. More the grace, more the faith. It is simultaneous. It takes no time, just like sunlight, and then immediately it takes no time for the darkness to dispel. Simultaneous. But one thing for our mind to know clearly is that even though grace is inexplicable, it could happen at any minute, any moment upon you, me, or anyone, at any time. It is sudden, it is spontaneous, it is as per the will of God who alone knows what it is. Even though promise is there when for the faithful, those who surrender, those who go through daily prayers, etc., a grace has come upon them already to do that sadhana, and in that sadhana eventually they are going to get the grace because surrender invokes the grace. The 5 degrees of grace now, you repeat. Daya. Second degree, Kripa. Third degree, Karuna. Fourth degree, Anukampa. Fifth and the highest degree is called Anugraha. Now, the first degree of grace is upon everybody. Whether you are a saint or a sinner, theist or a atheist. The first degree of grace is upon everyone. Suppose you deny God, He is not going to deny the breath from your nose, from your lungs. Suppose you deny the existence of God and condemn God or do whatever you want, He is not going to tell sun, don't shine on his head. Rain, don't fall near his home. Breath, wind, God, withdraw from his lungs, let him die because he is not believing in me. God would never say that. If God says that, then God is not God. He becomes another jealous fellow. Therefore, He is God because no matter what you do, there is daya on you. Grace, first degree of grace called daya. Therefore, you already have the first degree of grace. Be happy. From there you begin the second degree now. The second degree is called, what is the second degree? Kripa. Kripa. This is the degree we have to obtain by repeating japa, performing sponsoring, Satyanarayana Puja, charity, dedications. God shower this grace upon him or her or me, that he is crippled, that he is in trouble, that he requires help. No human being can help that. Only through your grace it is possible. Like that, the austerity which you do, tapasya you do, fasting you do, prayer you do, invokes that second degree of grace and heals you. All healing takes place when you appeal to God through this second degree called the Kripa. Now there is the higher degree called Karuna. Say that. Karuna is one of the most beautiful word for compassion in Sanskrit. And Buddha chooses that as the highest kind of compassion in Buddhism, they call Karuna. Nothing is withheld from you. God gives complete whatever you wanted, whatever wishes to be fulfilled. That Karuna brings even the grace of enlightenment to go across the ocean of samsara. The fourth is called Anukampa. Say that. Anukampa means God becoming mother. Anukampa means that mother. Normally, a boss always sends his secretary or servant to, hey, do this, do that. But in this case, God Himself, Anukampa means God Himself like a mother coming for the protection of the child. That requires that degree of surrender also. See, when the child just say, Ma, Ma, she won't come. He will give some candies and some toys. When the child really missing the mother, say, Mommy, Mommy, then she throws some more candies and new toys now. And there afterwards, when you still see that the child is getting desperate, kicking, throwing all these candies and toys, missing the mother, Amma, Ma, I only want you, nothing but you. Then she asks her husband, hey, you better go there, babysit for some time. Sometimes she plays with the papa, but she wants only mama, that child. And therefore, again she cries. The child cries again with agony. Now some of his brothers were sent. That also finally will not satisfy the child. When nothing other than mommy satisfies the baby, then the child cries with all its strength, with all its heart, dashing its head to the forehead. Then milk is boiling, telephone is ringing, relatives are knocking at the gate for Thanksgiving. In the midst of all these things, mother gives up all other duties and herself rushes to the baby. She comes, she lifts the baby, she again and again pats, kisses, caresses. The more she does that, the child complains, why didn't you come early for me? Why did you delay like this? Why are you neglecting me? Like that, the more she caresses, more the child complains also. Then more she consoles, I am sorry, I should have come for you long ago, my darling. I will never fail you again. Please, please forgive me. Thus, God does the same thing with the devotee. Anukampa means that. What is the highest one? Anugraha. Anugraha. Anugraha Vithala. Anugraha means there is no explanation for that. In Anugraha, God gives His entire kingdom to you. God gives all the powers more than anything, keeps you always at His lotus feet. Anugraha means you are sitting on the right hand side of the Father in heaven as you hear. Keys of heaven and hell, all kinds of grace will be upon you, highest degree. God says, I have become you, you have become me. I run behind you wherever you are singing the holy name. That's the Anugraha which Saint Tukaram, Tulsidas, Christ Jesus, all these masters had. Let us therefore worship God and obtain His supreme grace, which will heal not only little sicknesses, but birth-death cycle and blesses us with immortality. All sadhana, all yoga, all meditations, all prayers and puja, all Bibles and the Bhagavad Gita has but one goal, and that is to get the grace of God. Today or tomorrow, preferably today is better. Thanksgiving. Ram Ram Govinda! Govinda!
Amazing.
I was fortunate to be able to find this video that he had actually done something on a Thanksgiving day. So
Oh yeah, that's perfect.
It totally fit the topic and the occasion that we were talking about. And I think just like we were talking about gratitude, the grace is something that has to go hand in hand with that, Like he said, even for us to be doing what we're doing right now, God has given us the grace to be able to at least be intrigued by it, to be inspired by it, and to be able to do this, So all glories to the Almighty Lord, and I'm thankful that we have been able to hear this great wisdom from Guruji. So now we will conclude with the holy days of the month, and in the month of November, we have a few other than Thanksgiving, which is on the 27th. So November 1st is Bhishma Panchaka, which was also Ekadashi Day. So what that means is Bhishma Panchak is a significant 5-day period at the end of the Hindu month of Kartik, observed with fasting and devotion to honor Bhishma Pitama and please Lord Vishnu. Its significance lies in the purification of the soul, removal of great sins, and gaining blessings for spiritual advancement. And it is considered the most important part of the Kartika Vrat, or this month of Kartik that we just finished with, the Vrat or the fast ritual that is observed. The fast is also believed to be a way to attain salvation. So the story goes that Bhishma, at the end of this war, had wanted to hold this fast basically until Lord Vishnu, or in the form of Krishna, came and gave him the last darshan before he actually gave up his body. So that was the 5th and final day, and he had completely fasted for these 5 days. So that was November 1st. And then we have Tulsi Vivah on November 2nd. Tulsi Vivah's significance lies in its celebration of the divine union of the sacred basil plant, or Tulsi, and Lord Vishnu, marking the end of the monsoon and beginning of the wedding season. It symbolizes purity, devotion, and domestic harmony, and is believed to bless unmarried individuals with good spouses and childless couples with fertility. The festival also upholds cultural traditions, promotes good community bonding, and holds spiritual lessons on surrender and love for the divine. Then we have November 4th, Vaikuntha Chaturdashi. That is a Hindu festival celebrating the unity of Lord Vishnu and Lord Shiva, known as Hari Har Milan, which occurs on the 14th day of the waxing moon in the Hindu month of Kartik. Devotees worship both deities, performing special rituals and prayers like the offering of lotus flowers and tulsi leaves to honor this sacred bond. The festival's significance is rooted in a story from the Shiv Puran, highlighting the themes of devotion, sacrifice, and spiritual harmony. Then we have, on the November 5th, Kartik Purnima, which is the full moon day in the month of Kartik, which holds a special significance, and Guru Nanak Jayanti. So let me read a little bit about each one. So Kartik Purnima is a significant festival celebrated for multiple reasons, including the victory of Lord Shiva over the demon Tripurasur, which is why it's called Tripuri Purnima or Dev Diwali also. The day commemorates the victory of light over darkness by celebrating the destruction of 3 demon-built cities with lamps. So, and then Guru Nanak Dev Ji, it's also known as Guru Purab, which is his birthday, is a Sikh festival celebrating the birth of the first Sikh Guru, Guru Nanak. Celebrations include a 48-hour non-stop reading of the Guru Granth Sahib, the holy scripture of the Sikhs, processions called Nagar Kirtans, and communal meals known as Langar. The festival emphasizes Guru Nanak's teachings on the equality, kindness, and truthful living, and it is held on the full moon day of the month of Kartik. So here we are. And then We have November 12th, Kala Bhairav Jayanti. Kala Bhairav Jayanti is significant as it marks the birth anniversary of Lord Kala Bhairav, a fierce manifestation of Lord Shiva. Devotees worship him for protection from negative energies, fear, and obstacles, and to gain clarity, focus, and liberation from suffering. This day is considered highly auspicious for performing rituals and prayers to honor the deity and seek his blessings. And then November 25th is Vivah Panchami. So Vivah Panchami is a Hindu festival celebrating the divine wedding of Lord Rama and Goddess Sita, symbolizing love, devotion, and the triumph of dharma. It is celebrated on the 5th day of the waxing moon in the month of Margashirsha, which is after Kartik Mas. The significance of the day lies in honoring the ideal marriage and seeking blessings for happiness, prosperity, and the resolution of marital conflicts. Though many consider it inauspicious for performing new marriages due to the hardships the couple faced later in life. Very interesting. I had no idea about this, but the Panchanga told me about this day, and I thought it was very unique. It's interesting that, how Ram and Sita, soon after they were married, had to go into the exile period, and then, of course, their separation period and all that. And it's not a pleasant story, as we know. But it's interesting how new marriages do not take place on this day.
Right, absolutely.
And then we have Subramanya Shashti, which is the last day that I'd like to mention, November 26th. Subramanya is another name for Lord Kartikeya or Muruga. He's the elder son, I believe, or maybe no, the second son of Lord Shiva and Parvati. And so this celebrates the victory of Lord Subramanya or Kartikeya over the demon Tarakasura, symbolizing the triumph of good over evil. It is considered highly significant for devotees of Lord Murugan who perform rituals and observe fasts on this day to gain blessings for protection, good health, and to overcome obstacles like Sarpadosh and Manglik Dosh. So these are like inauspicious curses or some sort of inauspicious spirits that may be surrounding you, that many a time these, what's it called? Astrologers.
Yes.
Yeah. The astrologers are able to sometimes see based on your birth date and your whole, life history and all that. They somehow figured out that you may have some weight upon you from some evil spirits. So they try to suggest that you do some rituals and some sort of auspicious practice to be able to rid yourself of those evil spirits. So this is something apparently that can do that, this celebration of Lord Kartikeya's Subramanya Shashti. So with that, we've come to the end of the holy days of the month, and I'd like to urge everyone to certainly take to being more grateful, thankful in your life, and not just on Thanksgiving Day, but really use Thanksgiving Day as a launch pad to sort of make this vow to yourself that every single day I'm going to be taking some time out to maybe reflect on what I've done today, and whatever it is, good or bad, like Guruji says, you offer it to God and you move past whatever it is, the good and the bad, and you are thankful for whatever it is that you went through that day, because all of it, like we said, is something we can learn from and gain something from. So I'd like to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving. And Vikram, happy Thanksgiving to you and your family.
Likewise. Same to you as well and your family.
Thank you. And thankful to have you once again. And we look forward to the next episode, which will close out the year 2025,
Yeah, our first year.
Yes. First year, hopefully, of many. So
yes.
So I hope everybody enjoys their Thanksgiving and eat some good food, get good rest, and enjoy your family time. And Om Shanti, may you all be well. Thanks.